All right, let's admit everyone. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first event of BerLearn of 2021. My name is Olla Jongerius. I'm really excited to welcome a very big crowd today, and really excited to see so many participants. Very relevant topic for many of you, from people from all over the world. So I just wanted to say a couple of words about BerLearn and what we do. BerLearn was born in Berlin, Berlin learn and earn, but we operate all over Europe and we are everywhere. Especially due to COVID-19, we had opportunity to welcome everyone from all over the world, being an online world. So what do? We realized that learning professionals tend to fall into profession of learning, and sometimes they also need upskilling, because what we do that we upskill everyone, we develop people as our profession, but we sometimes forget about our own upskilling. So we are a community of learning and development professionals. We have different programs running at the moment, such as matchmaking, mentorship program, boot camps, events like this, and so on and so forth. So a lot of things are happening. We have a Slack channel where people communicate. We have resources on our website. So check it out. There's a lot of free information. We are a non-profit organization. We don't have any commercial use. So anything that we collect, and thank you for those who donated some money, actually goes towards our expenses to run events like this. So I'm gonna hand over to Gudrun, who is going to facilitate events tonight, and we're going to be speaking at the end of the event with the next steps for networking. So have fun. Really nice to see you all, and talk to you soon. Enjoy.
Yeah, hello everyone, also from my side. I'm Gudrun. I'm currently working at HelloFresh, leading the learning and development function. And I'm hiring and onboarding employees since 11 years in various HR roles across Europe. If I'm talking about 11 years in HR for Berlin, I might be considered ancient in HR. Yeah, so why are we actually talking about the topic of onboarding? I think there's a lot of things that can go right in onboarding, but a lot of things that can go wrong. And with attracting, hiring, and onboarding new employees, it can be a bit like a first date. So basically, you only get one chance for a very good first impression. And of course, a work relation is not a love relationship. But I think we in HR and in learning and development, we really need to remind ourselves regularly that we have quite a high responsibilities towards our new starters. So even before joining us, they might have taken major decisions, major life decisions. They might have moved to another country. They might have rejected another job offer. They might have left their job to come work with you and your company. And they might have taken their kids out of school to move to a new city. So I would always say, don't make them regret the decision. And I think this is why onboarding is particularly important for us. And I think onboarding has not particularly become easier with COVID hitting all of us. So this is why we thought, okay, maybe it's worth taking some time to talk about best practices in remote onboarding and also about what can go wrong. And this is basically my little introduction before I move to quickly introducing our panelists for today. I will ask you to use the chat box once for today, because afterwards we will use a different tool, and tell me where are you calling us from today. So please use the chat box and put in where you're calling us from today. We have a huge group today, and it's interesting to see where we're calling from. I saw a lot of Barcelona, Vienna callings, Texas, North Carolina. I saw Barcelona, Dublin. Great. So this is a very, very international panel today, Olla. I'm quite excited about this one. Perfect. So welcome to everyone all across the world, near and far. As a facilitator, I will, of course, only be guiding our great panel. So let's stop talking about me. I want to share a bit about who we have with us today. And I think we brought together a nice panel with interesting profiles. So you will be hearing from 4 different company representatives after my little introduction. We have Anna Richardson with us, an Aussie in Berlin, who's currently HR Director EMEA at Contentful. We also have Marisa Kittel, who's working with Doctolib as a people success partner. Doctolib is currently the talk of town when it comes to planning vaccinations, so you might have come across it. We also have Laura Naomi Young from HelloFresh, our learning and development specialist and Swiss Army knife when it comes to L&D topics overall. And we have Ariel Hansberger, who's looking after organizational effectiveness in Slack, calling in from San Francisco. And I'm particularly excited to have such an international panel today. And with that, I will actually open the first introduction round. And we will actually move to Anna, who will talk a bit about the onboarding journey in the last year at Contentful. And I will hand over to you, Anna.
Thank you. It's nice to meet everyone virtually. I'm just going to make sure that the slides are working. Olla, are you guiding our slides? Yes, amazing. Just give us one sec while we get that up. But I'll introduce myself while we're waiting for the tech to work. So my name's Anna Richardson, and I'm the Director of People for EMEA at Contentful. As was said before, I'm Australian, but I have called Berlin home now for the last 6.5 years. I joined Contentful in July 2019, and my role at Contentful is that I manage the HR business partnering team in EMEA, our workplaces team. That's a whole different story, but we're moving offices and have been planning that for the whole past year. So the irony of that is not lost on me. And up until the end of last year, I also managed our HR operations team in EMEA. So it's kind of with my HR ops hat on as well that I look back very fondly at the changes that we had to make to onboarding when COVID hit. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Let me start off by just giving you an introduction at a really high level about what we do at Contentful. So we're a Berlin startup that was founded in 2013 by our founder, Sasha, who was our CEO up until the end of 2019. He's still very active in the business, and Paolo, who is our CTO, and he is still our CTO. We have an American CEO, Steve, based in San Francisco, and we have, we refer to them as hubs. We have a hub in Berlin, we have a hub in San Francisco, and we announced last year that we're opening a hub this year in Denver, in Colorado. We were in a really fortunate position in June last year to actually announce, after COVID hit, that we'd secured an $80 million round of Series E funding led by Sapphire and including Salesforce Ventures as well. So that's brought our investment up to around 158 million in total funding for Contentful. We had a really interesting journey last year. We started with 295 employees and we ended the year with 435. And as you can see here, we're already plus 450. So we've gone through a lot of growth despite the challenging circumstances that we faced with the global pandemic. So what we do, we are here, we're trying to disrupt a very stagnant market category. We have built an API-centric platform which helps all of our customers and clients organize, manage, and store their content. So as you know, the whole world has turned digital. So that's why I think Contentful is also in a very fortunate position, because we were very well prepared for this digital transformation. So next slide, please. So the world of Contentful, I think I really like this slide. It gives you a bit of an insight into our company. We operate in 3 countries, as I mentioned, or actually 2 countries, the US and Germany, but we have a very, very distributed workforce as well. And that was the case even before COVID. We have over 70 nationalities now represented at Contentful. And last year, we had a big year in hiring. We had over 200 employees onboarded remotely since April in 2020. On average, that was around 20 new hires per month. So the next slide, please. So what I wanted to share with you all was just a bit of a snapshot of what our onboarding looked like before COVID hit, and now what it looks like 1 year on after. I guess we're still going through the pandemic, but one thing I will say that was touched on at the beginning, I'm very much kind of highlighting what's worked, but I also want to highlight that, you know, not everything did work for us. And of course, I don't have so much time to talk through also what didn't work for us. But what I would just say as well is I think it's for everyone out there who's wondering, like, what is the best practice? I think just be brave and be bold and try things. And if they don't work, then that's also like perfectly okay. And we've learned that way a little bit as well at Contentful. So what I would just highlight is that before COVID, we had a very BerLearn-centric onboarding process. We actually used to fly all of our employees from the US and across the world to Berlin to experience their first week with us. We had, of course, all of our IT and setups were all done in the office face-to-face. And we had a whole series of face-to-face interactions, coffee chats, welcome lunches. Our founders used to take employees out for lunch, and we used to do tours. Our office was in Kreuzberg. We used to do tours around Kreuzberg and the likes. And much of the onboarding planning and setup was, I would say, led by managers. And of course, HR was involved, but it was mainly through kind of, you know, getting every employee set up on our HRIS, sending out reminders and the like. So the touch points weren't as great. Flash to the after. And what I would say, of course, you know, like every business and every one of you on this call will have experienced, COVID hit us like a truck as well. And while we were somewhat prepared because we were, you know, we're a tech company, there were absolutely things that just changed from one day to the next. And so, of course, the obvious one being travel. And we'd already knew that the traveling was not particularly scalable for us. So we had cut down on that a bit before COVID. But it forced us to really, really quickly move to digital formats for all of our onboarding sessions. And so we had to create video content for all of our different teams. And to be honest, that's taken some time. Originally, we actually just started to do the sessions live, but via Zoom. And then we realized, wow, our hiring needs are so great. We can't be asking our managers to give up like 5 hours of their time every month. So we had to create video content, which we only really got to towards the end of last year. One of the big changes, and I'd say this was definitely not the easiest thing, was all of our IT setups had to be done remotely. And one thing that I would say worked for us really well, and I was really deliberate in this, was making sure that we had alignment between all of the different cross-functional teams with HR, IT, and finance. And so I had set up like a monthly, and recruitment as well. And so I'd pulled all of these teams together monthly to make sure we were aware, everyone kind of knew the situation with COVID, because of course it was changing so regularly, that we knew also, does IT have what they need for us to be able to send out the right amount of equipment to all of our new starters? If not, what do they need from us? And this created like a really kind of open and transparent dialogue between all of us. And just generally what I would say, looking back, is it's meant much more communication from HR and from managers, both before an employee starts and once they start with us. Because I think it was mentioned at the beginning, the level of anxiety, you know, it's stressful enough for anyone changing jobs. And then suddenly this global pandemic hit, and let's be real about this, it makes that anxiety all the more. And it's just a really weird time to be, you know, it was at least for a few months last year, it probably still is quite a weird time for people to be changing jobs. So when we pulled the team together, and I do want to stress, because I know I've got a couple of my team members on the call tonight, this was such a team effort, right? Like I was so proud of the team as well for how they pulled together. They put their creative hats on, and we really just said, right, like, how do we make the lives easier for all of the employees that have decided that they want to join Contentful? And it kind of just started with that and then grew and grew and grew. So if we could go to the next slide, please. What I just wanted to highlight was, next slide, please, was a couple of things that have worked well for us. And some of these things we had in place before COVID, and they could actually be used quite well in a remote format. But one thing, just the next slide, the first thing I want to alert you to, and this has worked super, super well for us, is our new hire portal. Sorry, next slide, please. So this was the idea. This came up from my team, who just said, look, we've just got all of this information spread out everywhere. And again, back to my point around the anxiety people feel when they're moving jobs, we need to give people a sense of reassurance, even if they can't come into the office physically and meet their colleagues. How do they stay connected and understand the type of company that they've chosen to join? So we created a new hire portal, which had information ranging, for example, of, hey, this is our senior management team and our executive team, to this is how you navigate your way through German bureaucracy, manage your pay slips. And we were lucky we could pull some video content. We even had a virtual office tour of our office in Kreuzberg, so people could get a sense of, hey, once we're ever allowed to go back to the office, this is what the office will look like. So we send this out to prospective employees once they've signed their contract, once we know they're starting, but before they've actually joined Contentful, so about a month. So next slide, please. So this has been one great thing. Another thing that we do is we have a budding system called Contentful's First Friend, or CFF program. This is managed from someone in our workplaces team, and they pair up all of our new starters with another employee at Contentful. It can be from within your team, but we try and encourage it to be from someone from outside of your team. And this is someone who really is your go-to person in those first few weeks and months. You know, that person you reach out to when you feel like you've got a stupid question that you don't want to ask your manager, someone who can help you if you've moved countries. You know, we have a lot of employees who move to Berlin to join Contentful. So, you know, they can help you really feel settled in and get settled in Berlin themselves. So for that, we set the employee up before they start, and we encourage the CFF to reach out to the newbie before they've even started to say, hey, we know that you're joining next week on Monday. We're super excited to have you. I'm going to arrange a coffee with you on your first day and help you navigate your way around Contentful. So we actually have that program typically. It's not so structured. It's really up to the CFF and the employee to decide how often they meet and the likes. But we consistently get good feedback. And, you know, sometimes we've had a few issues with this, especially as we scale and we grow, but everyone keeps saying, don't get rid of this, don't get rid of this. So that's another thing that's worked super well for us. So next slide, please. Then I think I mentioned before how we've just had to move everything into a digital format. So we call our new employee orientation and liftoff. So we basically have videos for each department, and we've just really had to leverage, how do we leverage kind of on-demand learning and asynchronous learning so that people can develop onboarding plans and watch these videos at a time that really works for them. So that's also been really great, and we encourage everyone to watch these videos in their first month. And then, look, the final thing I want to mention, and I'm sure this is something that I'm sure many of you on this call are already doing or already have access to. So just to the next slide, please, is we are really big fans of the donut bot on Slack. So we've integrated this across the whole company. And what the bot does is it randomly pairs you and assigns you to someone else within the organization that you can have a 30-minute catch up with. And it even goes so far as to try and find times in your diary if you end up being too busy to organize that yourself. this has also been like a really, really good touch point. Of course, it's not just onboarding related, but especially for newbies. And I would honestly say too, given we've had over 150 people join the company since we've been working remotely that I've never met, I find it super, super valuable to be able to connect with people that I wouldn't ordinarily talk to in my day-to-day work. So these are just a few things. If we could go to the last slide. So what I just wanted to leave you with, as I said, these are the things that worked. There were plenty of things that didn't work and that we've kind of learned along the way. But what I would say, the main things are, the takeaways are, you know, we really pivoted to online content, and that was, you know, changing all of our sessions from being live in person to then being on video. And we tried to make them much more interactive and fun. And I have to thank our L&D team for that. We became also much better and more innovative about onboarding people in different geographical time zones. And really, like, one thing I would like just stress, if you walk away remembering one thing that I've said, is just, I can't underestimate how important it is just to create networking and collaboration opportunities for your employees, especially when they're new. And I know we've all had Zoom fatigue and had enough of Zoom altogether. But for example, we still do happy hours, we still do newbie networking events where randomly, for example, one of our executive team members may just turn up without them knowing. And that's a really like nice touch as well. And what we've learned really is communicate. That to me is just the key in getting this right. As I said, if we really need to alleviate the angst that people have when they start a job, especially with the backdrop of a global pandemic. And, you know, the last thing, I know it's the third point, but I want to end with that just to say, we've also learned that there is absolutely no substitute for some face-to-face interactions, for some social events, right? And that's okay. And we speak at Contentful at least very openly about that. So we haven't tried to also bombard our employees with too many extra events outside their day-to-day lives and their day-to-day workload. We've heard, you know, we have a lot of working parents, myself included, and, you know, everyone has stuff going on outside their work. So we've tried to respect that as much as possible. We talked about having a virtual Christmas event and no one wanted that. So, you know, I think it's okay to acknowledge that this is hard and it's not easy, and everyone is looking forward to going back and having those interactions at some point. But yes, thank you for listening to me first up. And I have a lot of pleasure now in talking to you later on and passing over to Marisa.
Thank you, Anna. And before we hand over to Marisa, I will say a few words about questions. First of all, thank you for your little introduction. I'm sure there are a lot of questions. I at least have some. So the structure of the session is that first we have our speakers share their insights from the last year, and then we will use the last half hour to really answer your questions. And how we will do this, and so what we learned in the last events is that it's a bit distracting for speakers if questions pop up in a chat box. This is why Olla created a Slido for this event. So Olla will just now, actually she already shared the link to the Slido with you. So if you have questions during the presentation, please write them down there, and then we'll come back to it afterwards. Good. Yeah, Anna, thanks for this. I really also liked how you kind of positioned the HR team as the rock, or basically the rock in times of uncertainty for employees. And I think this is also something we have to keep in mind. How can we create a really safe space, and how can we create a welcoming, comfortable environment for new starters when they join our company, to make, let's say, the best of the bad situation currently. Thanks for that. With that being said, I will hand over to Marisa, who will share about the remote onboarding journey at Doctolib. Marisa, handing over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. So I am going to share my screen. Just give me a second to set this up. You should be able to see my screen now. Is that right? There you go. Right? Perfect. Is it working? Just give me a thumbs up. Perfect. Thank you. Yes. So first of all, thank you very much for having me on the panel. I'm very pleased because I attend myself many BerLearn sessions. So now I'm happy to sort of give back and to contribute, especially because I'm sort of a newbie to L&D too. So I'm happy to, or I feel honored to be among us. So ancient and experienced panelists here. So as I mentioned, I'm Marisa. I'm a people success partner at Doctolib. I joined fairly recently, so in September, so in between lockdowns actually. And in my role, I'm actually focused on people onboarding especially. So we're actually a dedicated team within Doctolib, 4 people, 2 in Berlin and 2 in Paris, because we're a German-French company. I'm originally a career shifter, so I have a background in law and I worked in political communication before, until I really saw my passion is more about people and creating a workplace where people feel comfortable and can thrive. And that's how I sort of made the switch first to tech recruitment, and then I stepped into this role at Doctolib. So maybe for those of you who do not know Doctolib, or Gudrun already mentioned it at the beginning, those who do know Doctolib usually have Googled maybe a doctor in Berlin or Paris or elsewhere in France or Germany, and Doctolib has popped up because we are indeed a service in Germany and France for patient and consulting management. So when you want to book an appointment with a doctor, this is how you find us. Just to give you the key, maybe key numbers of our growth so far. So at the end of 2020, we're currently 1,600 Doctolibers roughly. We onboarded around 400 people, and we want to continue growing at this pace. So we're basically growing by 15% this year too, which means we onboard roughly 50 people a month. So this is split between Paris and Berlin, or actually across Germany, because we have different sites also in Germany and France. I'm going to jump right into it, but Anna, she already framed it so well. So everything she sort of mentioned is already very similar, and at the same time, she touched like all the main considerations in this onboarding process. I'm very glad she was the first speaker. Basically, makes it easier on me, and I'm going to maybe start on a very high level because we have 2 main missions at Doctolib. Number 1 is to improve the healthcare system, and the second is actually to build a company of entrepreneurs. So we already had a program built for onboarding before the pandemic, which looks like what you can see at the moment. So I'm going to give you the high-level intro to this, and then afterwards I'm going to show you maybe the highlights of the remote program, or the remote version of it, and the learnings we've had along the way. So obviously onboarding starts not just on the first day, but actually upon signature of the contract. So we sort of try to build the momentum starting from that point, because we don't want the momentum to drop before that. So what we do is we have regular touch points with the new joiner along the way. We send materials, make sure everything is on time. As Anna mentioned, it demands a lot of collaboration with our IT team, HR ops team within our company as well. To set the tone in a way, we've also created a Spotify list, because obviously we want it to be light and enjoyable, and we try to sort of make people feel comfortable with it. Just talking about remote onboarding, we generally weren't used to remote work before the crisis, because we were a full on-site company. And so we have made a full switch to remote, which also included the fact that we created many remote kits for everyone to know about best practices of working from home. Obviously, it's important to communicate about how to use the technology, or the tech tools, and also the IT things. So this is a strong focus as well in this time before the first day. We also have an onboarding portal. We use Workday, and that's where we sort of have a dashboard putting together the main information. And obviously, as an onboarding team, we're there to support everyone during the process within the first 3 months to 6 months, because we're also evolving and growing. Eventually, we move on to the first week of a new joiner, where we have a boot camp. So as Anna mentioned, we actually still have like top management. So our founder, our managing directors, they all take the time to meet the new joiners and take that hour per month, because it's part of our mission in a way to really welcome everyone. And in this first week, we really teach all the Doctolib fundamentals. So we share the vision, the strategy, and different sessions that we've now sort of made a lot more interactive and remote. Obviously, I'm going to get back to that. And the new joiner also meets the core team, the manager. The third phase, I would say, is the team academy. So we as an onboarding team, we support the teams themselves as an in-house consultant, I would say, to build their onboarding process within their teams. So we're sort of supportive there, but we know that they have the knowledge about their field. So we empower them to do so. They are onboarded on strategies and initiatives within a week, and sometimes up to 3 weeks, actually, depending on the team. And then eventually we move on to the takeoff sessions. This is actually within 3 months, and we're actually extending it. It's basically a 1-hour session per week. So everyone's in their jobs, but they have this 1-hour session per week where they still have like in-depth sessions about departments, people to know, but also feedback or unconscious bias trainings. That kind of types of trainings happen there. So now I will move on to the program highlights. This is not just remote, so I put it in brackets because I think it's a whole. So what I call framing the experience is actually really like the communication part. Anna already stressed is a really, especially because you're anxious and you don't know what is expecting you, try to be as transparent and clear about it from the beginning. So talk about the timeline, talk about the meetings you're going to have or they're going to have regular touch points to make sure they feel comfortable, they have everything they need. I try to personalize what matters. So I'm a fan of automatization, but I really highlight the fact that they can give me a call. They can, I add a calendar link so that they still know that there's a person actually there. Because otherwise, through just talking through computers, you might feel a bit disconnected. And then again, also setting the expectation as a whole, I think is important, because I realize a lot of new joiners are anxious about whether the computer is going to work. So I really, from the beginning or from day one, we really say tech hiccups are normal, be comfortable with imperfections. And within the first bootcamp week, we really stress the fact that we want clear checkouts at the end of the day. We end the day with a meditation or a short energizing exercise, because we feel like we want them to rest and to process everything their sort of experience. And then we obviously have also like the whole sort of engaging tools for interactive sessions. We introduced Bcast, which is a tool where you can create polls, but also word clouds. It's something similar to Mentimeter. Maybe some people are familiar with that. We use Kahoot quizzes as a fun tool to sort of test knowledge, but it's more fun. People really appreciate it. But also work with visualization. So in workshops, we use Jamboards and breakout sessions. Also important to us, and this is not just part of the remote part, is that we want our new joiners to know our users. So we actually invite healthcare professionals to join our first week, but all Doctolibers actually can join in and ask questions to a doctor or healthcare practitioner. We have this. But also, this is also a quick win, I would say, is a tool called Icebreaker Video. It's for free for up to 40 people, where you also have like these random one-on-one matchings with icebreaker questions. And like the new joiners love it. So I really highly recommend it. And you're also going to experience it tonight is the Wonder Me tool. So we do like speed networking for everyone. We sort of invite cross-country new joiners in France, but also in Germany, but also old-timer Doctolibers, and they come and join and mingle. And then finally, I would also say this is also whole part of the global maybe strategy of people engagement initiatives we have. So we've organized online treasure hunts. We currently have like an eco challenge. So we build teams, and obviously this is something I would strongly recommend to anyone new to the company to maybe join, to mingle among other Doctolibers as well. So I'm sort of, yeah, we're also introducing Donut. So I'm very, very eager about that. So Anna already mentioned it, this bot who does it all, who does the magic of matchings. And then I would come to the learnings, because this is also something that Anna already mentioned, but it's work in progress. It's continuously trying out things and seeing if it actually works or not. And I see a pleasure in it, because I feel like, okay, it's exciting to see the result of something. But I would say like they're already very simple tweaks. So what I did is we sort of created this whole automatization with a Slack workflow. So if you're already using Slack, it's pretty easy to set it up. You can plan like a communication within the first week, within the first month, and then also, you know, stretching it out over a longer period if you want to. And then you set it up once and then you just duplicate it. It's very easy and I love it. I'm already making an ad for Ariel later on, but yeah, she's going to get to that probably. Then also very important, what we realized is really shortening sessions. So working with speakers to cut their session and make it more compact, really give people, like, communicate strongly about taking longer lunch breaks and breaks in between. So we really highlight that, because we really want people to know it's okay. You know, everyone has this fatigue at some point, and yeah, we want them to be aware of it. And we also had a digital training kit, so put together so that trainers could review, or speakers could review their session, and we also sort of coach them on how to do this. So how to maybe have fun icebreaker questions, or to yeah, step up their game in remote, basically. Yeah, obviously this is a topic that is always growing and evolving, and we're continuously thinking about what we can do next. So on a global level on in L&D, we're obviously thinking about also micro learning tools. So we're looking at InTeach and Loom videos to sort of, yeah, quick win videos on how to use Google maybe, and I mean Gmail and the G Suite, you know, making it easier on people. And then it's always continuously working on communication within our team also. So working with the HR teams, our corporate IT team, but trainers and managers, this is continuously looking, is the process still working, and what do we have to change and adapt? And finally, it's obviously also, because we're in remote, I always think we don't want to overwhelm maybe a new joiner who's already occupied and consumed a lot by what's going on at work, to maybe join in the evening for another session. So I'm sort of still, yeah, mixed about this. So I'm very curious to hear the other speakers coming up next, because I'm done for now, and I'm happy to talk about the details later on.
Perfect. Thank you, Marisa. It's super interesting to hear what Doctolib is doing while you're also super busy in the current times. I also really like your focus on basically onboarding before day one, because we all know that employee experience is the new buzzword when it comes to HR. And I think, as I already mentioned in the beginning, onboarding starts before the day one. And I think this is really something to keep in mind for ourselves, but also for our new starters. I'm gonna re-emphasize for everybody who's listening that you can ask questions on Slido, hashtag BerLearn. I already see that there are some questions popping up, and I'm curious to see which ones are ranked highest in the end. And with that, I will actually hand over to Laura, who will share a bit more about the onboarding journey at HelloFresh in the past year. Laura, over to you.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be a part of this panel talk, and also lovely to hear what all of you others have been up to. So I'm learning a lot already. So I'm relatively new in the L&D field. I have worked as an HR generalist before, but not that specific. So yeah, it's an honor to learn and grow in that role at HelloFresh. I joined actually in June last year, so I was onboarded remotely as well, and had my first remote experience also in general, like probably most of you. My responsibilities are managing the onboarding at HelloFresh, and on top supporting all the L&D learning and development initiatives. Yeah, I've been a bit detailed with my presentation, so I try my best to keep it short and sweet. Yes, so most of you or some of you know HelloFresh probably. We are a meal kit service that delivers fresh ingredients to our customers' doorstep for them to cook, so no grocery shopping anymore. One of the things we are most proud of is that we are disrupting the traditional supply chain by making the supply chain shorter and more sustainable. So the consumer orders their HelloFresh box. It gets delivered from local farmers to our distribution centers, and then it goes directly to the customer. So we are cutting steps in between, which has the result that there's less food waste along the way and less greenhouse gas emissions. And with that being said, you can read it on the top. Our mission is to change the way people eat forever. And by focusing on topics like health, taste, budget, sustainability. Yes, and on the bottom of the slide, you can see other brands that HelloFresh has acquired in order to further expand in the meal kit industry. And to sum it up a bit, so some of them, the services, meal kit services are specializing in lower cost boxes and also special diets. And for example, on the very right, you can see Factor, which is our latest meal kit service that we acquired, which, for example, sends out already prepared meal kits. Yes, on the next slide, you can see that we quickly, or with that idea, HelloFresh, I think you have to go one more up, Olla. Yeah, it's probably, the one where you can see the HelloFresh founders, Dominic and Thomas. Yeah, so with that idea, HelloFresh quickly expanded. And to go back to the beginning, Dominic and Thomas founded HelloFresh in 2011 in Berlin. And from there, HelloFresh quickly explored the English-speaking markets, for example, UK, US, Australia, and of course, Europe as well. And with that, HelloFresh early on became the biggest global market player in the meal kit industry. So today you can find HelloFresh in about 14 countries worldwide, with the US being the biggest market. And some more facts here, we have like 10 offices worldwide and about 20 distribution centers, which you can see on the map. We are today over 11,000 employees worldwide. And to give you an idea, by the end of 2019, we were actually about 6,000 employees. And in 2020, HelloFresh was able to create about 5,000 new jobs. Which leads me to the next topic and the next slide. COVID hit us. It almost feels bad to say that we are one of the winners of this crisis, with people worldwide experiencing restrictions and then staying home more often. HelloFresh became even more interesting for many households, which helped us grow immensely in the last year. But let's look at Berlin, where my job lies. My job is to make sure that everyone coming to Berlin from all over the world, joining our different departments or entities. We have global, international, tech and DACH, the German-speaking countries in Berlin. And that they have a great start at HelloFresh. So in our Berlin headquarters, we are over 700 employees. And you can see in the numbers that each year we are hiring more and more people. For this year, we have an estimate to hire actually about 450 employees, which is almost 200 more than last year. While in the end of 2019 or beginning to 2020, we had about 25 to 38 joiners each month. We have 50 to 60 joiners now. So every 2 weeks we have an onboarding session. And in the last weeks, we actually had 30 joiners, which was a lot of fun, but also a bit challenging. So not only in the increasing hiring volume, but also the remote setup that started in April last year brought a lot of changes and challenges, but also opportunities, thankfully. Yes, on the next slide, you can see 2 timelines. And let me briefly walk you through the onboarding experience that we have and had. So you can see 2 timelines, before and after Corona, and we each split them into 3 sections. So before the first day, on the first day, and after the first day. In our in-person onboarding before Corona, we were focusing more on the setup and interaction that we had on the actual first day and in the first week. Of course, we made sure that before the onboarding session, we would let the employees and the managers know and get them well informed and prepared for everything. And on the first day, the new employees would come to our Berlin office in our living room, which you can see in our picture, in the picture that I inserted. And they would find their breakfast prepared for them and also meet and connect to one of our C-levels from our management board that we would invite, as well as other experienced HelloFreshers, so they could, get to know, our other HelloFreshers. Afterwards, we would use time to talk about the new employees, about our DNA, values, and culture. And during lunchtime, the managers would pick up the new employees from the living room and have lunch with them and their team. And afterwards, bring them back so that we could go with them to the IT team and get them set up with their hardware. And along with the hardware, the joiners would receive a starter bag with HelloFresh goodies. And that was it for the first day. On top, every first Friday, after an onboarding session, we would have cooking sessions in our kitchen lab at the office. There, the employees could have a good time together and get to know the product a bit better. So when Corona hit us, we tried to react as fast as we could and started remote onboarding sessions in April, which wasn't the easiest task. So in the beginning, we just had to keep our onboardings going and created a very long session for the joiners so that they could get set up and meet our IT team virtually, but also to give them more information about the company and our culture. Through feedback that we collected in the first weeks and months, we quickly realized that this wasn't enough and that our employees need more pre-onboarding preparation time, which also Anna and Marisa have mentioned, more communication, more engagement. After weeks of restrictions and lockdowns and not seeing people, this is much needed, and also more guidance in an uncertain and fast changing time, especially from people coming from far away. So because of that, we optimized and increased our communication before onboardings and made sure the information we give out is very strategic or strategically planned and placed. We are working very hard on a pre-onboarding website that will be launched in a few weeks. So we are actually in the middle of launching a lot of new things. The challenging part was also to get the hardware and the starter bag to the joiners. We started working with a door-to-door courier in order to make sure that the joiners get their equipment as quickly and safe as possible to their homes. But that also has been one of our greatest hiccups sometimes, because we, there's so much organization that goes on behind the scenes and a lot of coordination with different departments, which is wonderful, but also sometimes challenging. Further than that, we split our long onboarding session now into 2 and made sure that there is more room for connecting to other joiners, our C-levels, and the experienced HelloFreshers that we always invite in form of a hot seat session. We also focus more on getting the employees individually set up since each department and entity at HelloFresh has so different needs. Yes, and we also have a buddy system, so the employees gets a buddy to have a peer to stay connected to, and that they can guide them through the first weeks. We had to pause, unfortunately, our cooking sessions, but we are planning to pick them up in a remote setting, which I'm very excited about. And for the time after the first days, we make sure that we have regular check-ins on Slack and coffee chats with joiner and manager, but also we are planning to offer more remote sessions for relevant HelloFresh topics, and also utilize our new internal podcast that we have since last fall. Yes, and donut is actually also very high on my list, so I'm excited also to hopefully implement that soon. And lastly, we provide an onboarding checklist for our joiners that include information on who to meet and links to different sheets, slides, and one-pagers that can help in the first weeks. As you can tell, we are in the middle of improving and changing a lot of areas. So on the last slide, to wrap it up, you can see on this slide a few activities just to give you an idea also what happened before COVID, which some of them we unfortunately had to pause. But on top of it, there was, of course, a little more happening in the office before COVID. So we had Friday Cheers, which is a hangout every Friday after work, drinking a beer or other beverage, just to connect with colleagues. We had team events, annual company events, and also learning and training offerings where the employees were able to see people in person. Some of the things we were able to translate into a remote version, but a lot of them weren't. So the learnings that my team and I took out of this is that we need to provide way more guidance and to invest way more time in clear and good communication. That includes a well-planned setup when it comes to the equipment and tools the joiners will use, more engagement, or rather more guided engagement for newbies, so to make sure they have places and times where they can connect to all the different people at HelloFresh virtually. On this note, to help them stay engaged by checking in and providing connection opportunities even after their start date. And lastly, being very creative and flexible, to pioneer, to implement new things, to have crazy ideas. And I think these times require a lot of pioneering and adjusting, staying agile and motivated even when it's so much extra effort and time that needs to be invested in the beginning, but I think it will pay out very much. Yes, there's so much more I could talk about, but I hope I covered some of the points, and and I hope that you have an idea and an overview of what we do at HelloFresh. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Laura. I can already see some common denominators in the panelist group. So basically shortening the session time to keep all new starters engaged. Really a big focus on communication before first day, and also over communicating and providing more structure to new starters than in a, let's say, face-to-face setup. And I think that's a very nice link to Ariel, who's actually working for Slack. And we've heard a lot about the product. Now we're also curious to hear a bit more about your onboarding journey in the last year. So I'm handing over to you, Ariel.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I love hearing that you're all enjoying Slack and enjoying Donut as a tool. We love it and use it, absolutely. And actually what I did with the slides, I think you're all familiar with Slack and sort of the general idea. We are hopefully helping to make your working life simpler, more pleasant, more productive. And we share many common themes with the other speakers. We also had a really intensive onboarding program that we brought everyone to San Francisco from all around the world. We have a really high volume of onboarding. 600, 700 people a year, not uncommon to onboard that many folks. And so really actually what I thought I would do with the slides is give you a sense of what the onboarding experience would be. What do we do when you are very first meeting our onboarding team. These are folks who are part of our organizational effectiveness team. They are members of my team who really focus, we love to nerd out on how do we speed up ramp time? How do we make folks feel productive and included from that very first moment so that they can get down to the work that we really want them to be doing? So we start off with this, and it's all about inclusion. And we talk about you belong here because, first of all, you want to be here. You applied for this role, and you are on board with our company mission. You want to contribute to these efforts. And you also went through a really competitive selection process, and your team is really excited. We need you. We need your ideas. We need your experience in order to build this rocket ship as we fly it. Is one of the things that we find really resonates. And so, really, what we're trying to do is dispel some of that imposter syndrome, dispel some of that anxiety that new hires have, and allow them to really jump into the work without that. Oh wait, what am I doing here? So I've been onboarding people at Slack for close to 4 years now, and especially when we were in person, I recognize every Monday morning that deer in the headlights look that everybody has as they're sitting there going, whoa, what am I doing here? This is a lot. So really, we're trying to help folks overcome that as quickly as possible. And so in person to remote was definitely challenging. We loved doing in person. We were so heavily indexed on those in-person connections that help folks feel that sense of belonging right from the start. And then all of a sudden we had to pull everybody off planes, get them out of airport lines, retrieve their lost luggage, and send them home so that they wouldn't be caught in the wrong place for the first round of lockdowns. We faced a lot of those similar challenges of, oh, okay, now people are starting all over the world on different days, in different time zones. I don't have someone in APAC trained to run the welcome session. How are we going to get them computers? There was so much chasing computers around the world early on in the pandemic. So huge props to our people ops team, our workplace team, our biz tech team. They all jumped in to firefight and problem solve on a level that we had never had to do before. Eternal apologies to those who I was the one calling them and saying, hi, you're not coming to San Francisco after all. Sorry to ruin your San Francisco vacation, but you're not getting on the plane, and I'm sorry you're already in the security line. You need to get out and go home now. So it was a real scramble in the beginning, and we realized that our remote program really needed to over-index on that. We are all in this together. That is one of our core principles and our core mantras, and build that sense of community and connectivity without over zooming everyone. So I love what Laura and Anna were mentioning about really just chunking up and splicing out the different onboarding sessions. So having lots of different forms of interactivity. We also have a pre-onboarding website to answer all of those questions that people have in advance, to help them feel at ease. And we also get really regimented with their schedule. So we actually block time on new hires' calendars in their appropriate time zones. So yeah, huge props to my scheduling team, who does a lot of global figuring out what time would be ideal for this human who is in this part of the world that we never hired people in before, but people are stuck all over the globe right now. And so they end up doing a lot of figuring out, okay, how can we make sure that people have time to digest all of the information? We do what many of you mentioned of, we have different speakers who come in and introduce different functions of the company. My team has spent a lot of time working with those speakers, making sure that their content is punchy and succinct and interactive where possible, improving those videos. That's been a big thing. So we do a mixture of live sessions, and some of those we group. So if you were part of all of the new hires for the last 2 months, you get invited to a live session at one point. We usually repeat that live session in an APAC friendly time zone and in an EMEA friendly time zone. So we do a lot of repeat of live sessions so that folks can join those. And then we have self-serve video content as well, where it fits for the content. So next slide, I'll give you a sense of what we generally try to cover over the course of our onboarding program. So huge emphasis on our culture, and the idea of culture add is really important to us. We don't look for a culture fit. We don't want everyone to fit in together and be exactly the same, right? We want our culture to continually evolve and grow and become more inclusive. We want to make sure that we have many different backgrounds and perspectives represented, because we believe that that will make our product better. And so the Slack culture is all about those concepts around inclusivity and around engagement. We also spend a ton of time teaching folks how to collaborate effectively. My team loves to nerd out about this. If we are the world's collaboration hub, we had better be really good at it as employees, and both in our product as well as in the way we interact with one another in person. So we actually spend a lot of time talking about working styles, talking about our methods of collaboration, talking about how we can best work with one another. And we're also very improvement and evolution focused. So from the very beginning, our onboarding crew, they do a session called The Way We Work. And it's all about feedback. It's all about self-awareness. It's all about knowing, hey, these are the things that someone might misinterpret about me. What kind of feedback do I need? Do I need to solicit on a regular basis in order to be an ideal collaboration partner? So these are all things that our new hires get a big dose of introspection and discussion around best working practices and styles, as well as tons of Slack tips and tricks. So actually, I have a few of those outlined for you on the next slide, some of our etiquette that we really teach in order to make sure that conversations are happening in the most productive way within Slack itself. So we try not to overburden anyone with at everyone, at channel, at here. We don't do that. You build user groups. We make sure that you don't cry wolf. You don't ask for people's attention when you don't have something substantive for them to engage with. We help people find sort of tame. Sometimes I had a new hire once say, "Oh, my Slack looks like a demented Christmas tree. It's like flashing all these different colors. What's happening?" And so really helping people tame that chaos. And we expect, like, it's a natural curve that folks will feel like they are standing in a fire hose of information to start with. I actually encourage folks to just embrace the discomfort of that initially, and then you sort through the information from there of what will be relevant to you. And I love that our mission is both externally appropriate and internally appropriate, right? We do make Slack, your personal Slack should make your life simpler, more pleasant, more productive. So join channels, leave channels, mute the things you don't need, tailor that information feed so that it is giving you what you need. Because if we are all, if the many thousands of people, employees and then partners on Slack Connect, if we are all pouring our collective brain power into Slack, no individual is going to be able to extract all of that back out. That's not the way that equation works. And so really refining for yourself what it is that you need to get out of the platform in order to facilitate your work and the mission of your team. So lots of fun tips and tricks. We spend a lot of time going through this, both in person, and then we also have a couple of self-paced sessions. So we have within Slack interactive sessions. You can do this with workflows. So we do workflow sessions that teach you Slack 101, Slack 102. We're working on Slack 103 right now. Very excited to launch that soon. So teaching for those who have never used Slack before, or who used it in a sort of like fun gifts kind of way. We're really teaching all of these different, the features and functionality that really accelerate communication and collaboration. So making sure our new hires have a good, strong foundation in that is really important to us. And then finally, if you wouldn't mind, final slide, keeping it brief and succinct here, really everything comes back to these attributes, and we're really asking our new hires to think about how they show up in line with our attributes. And these aren't meant to be prescriptive. You don't have to follow these to the letter. But I ask folks, if you want a roadmap for success, if you want to be a really successful employee, think about your own version of each of these. You need a version of our attributes: so smart, humble, hardworking, collaborative. You need your own aspirational version of each of these, of this is what I'm working towards. You need to align that with what your manager expects of you, with what your team is asking of you for collaboration. And that will be the secret to success at Slack. So it's definitely been a long year as my team has adapted all of this, which was super heavily done in person, to much more digital, dispersed. but it's really, we keep, I think the biggest learning for us is new hires keep asking us. We do lots of surveys at different points and get lots of feedback from new hires around what they like and what's working for them and what they need in order to be more productive. And the community and connectivity pieces are just are so big. And I'm lucky to have recruited many members of my team who are originally doing other things to come and host sessions with our new hires, beginning of day check-ins, end of day checkouts. That we have boot camps, we have amazing teams that do advanced education in engineering and sales and customer experience, and really bringing all of those pieces together so that we're providing a more spread out but more cohesive digital experience of the onboarding process. So I'll wrap there for now, but it looks like there's lots of exciting questions. I've been following along in Slido, so yay, fun. Looking forward to that.
Thank you, Ariel, and not only thank you, but also thanks to Slack, because I think it has helped us a lot, like all of us, to kind of get through the last couple of months without less distraction. Let's put it like this. So first of all, thanks to all the speakers for now. So what we will do now, we will move over to the Slido questions you or all the participants have submitted. And I will actually start with one question that I have in mind, because I always feel that knowing your data is important. And like a couple of months ago, I was attending an event, a BerLearn event, where we were talking about how L&D can impact business success, and the main insight was know your data to also have a seat at the table. And I want to open the discussion with a question to you, Ariel, actually. So I'm quite sure you already gathered some data after the first couple of months of fully remote onboarding. So would you share some of your first insights with us?
Yeah, absolutely. The number one request we get in all of the surveys is that I want to come meet people in person. So I will echo what I heard others say of we will never be able to fully replicate the magic of meeting people face to face. So we know that that is one very consistent thing that people want, and it's the one thing that they keep telling us would make the onboarding experience better, is that opportunity to meet in person. Some other interesting bits and pieces that we have is actually the overall sentiment around productivity hasn't changed as we've gone remote. So actually, people feel, if anything, they feel like they are ramping up just as fast, if not faster, than they did when they were in the office in person. So actually, that's a really interesting phenomenon that my team is, of course, data is always challenging to dissect and make sure that you're getting quantitative as well as qualitative, but it's something that we're really trying to explore a little bit further of. That's really interesting around the ramp time, around the time to productivity. How else can we correlate that, and how else can we affect that? Because of course we want people to be as productive as possible, and to get that validation of productivity, personal validation of productivity as soon as possible. So it's an interesting piece that we're still trying to dive into in more depth. So I'd love to hear if anyone else has cracked that one yet.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's definitely something to look at, because I mean, there's always this discussion whether remote work makes people more or less productive, right? So it's super interesting insight you just shared with us. Thanks for that. Good. So I'm now looking at the Slido we created, and I think winner currently is a question for Anna. So Anna, the next one is for you. How did you manage to make the recorded department intros fun and engaging? So in terms of tools and also instructions to the presenters. This is apparently a hot topic for our participants.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, actually, after I presented, I was talking with someone just quickly on Slack about, and she said to me, I still think we have a way to go to make our content more fun, just to throw it out there for transparency. But look, I think what we realized, like our L&D director spent a lot of time going over the content of the videos, and it was just, some were okay, some needed a lot of improvement. And so he kind of just went back to basics and created, I wouldn't go so far as a script, but he created a template, which we then went out and shared with all the managers, because what we realized actually also in a lot of the video contents we originally had was there was somewhat some repetition. There was content in there that actually didn't really need to go into the induction and orientation video. I'll give you a classic example, right? Our finance team had their video and basically spent half of it talking about how to put a Raidu cost expense in. And so we said, look, that I don't think a new starter really needs to know that within their first week or two. We can just have like a bite-sized information video that's separate. So I still think we have a way to go, but I think we created a lot more like consistency around like what we expected, and a lot more guidance. And that was missing before. Beforehand, people could just present basically what they wanted. So it was even just saying to them, no, you've got to use like this template. You've got to get new starters excited about like the journey. Like think back to when you first started at Contentful, how scary that was. And think about what was really helpful for you to know in your first few weeks. And so there was an emphasis also on, like, I think I heard someone else mention it too, much more bite-sized information chunks, right? Rather than having these really long-winded videos. And at first that took some time, right? We didn't get that right at the beginning. We had some presenters spending an hour talking about their department, and we said, no, that's just not great for anyone. We need to cut that in half. So I think, in summary, what I would just say is be really clear about the type of message that you want to convey. Spend the time in actually investing in proper briefs for all of the people that are going to be in front of the video. And in fact, remember, it's not actually maybe a natural forum for everyone. So you might even have to do a fair bit of prep with those that are doing the videos themselves, which I know our L&D director actually did have to do as well. And just also kind of, lighten it up a bit and don't keep it so kind of content rich as well. Those would be my kind of tips.
Thank you. And this goes nicely in line with what we said before about structure overall in remote onboarding. So I think it needs more structure also when it comes to how to provide information about the company. Yeah? Good. I'm looking at the Slidos again, and there's one question which is currently ranked highest, and this is about KPIs. You gotta love your KPIs. So the question is, and this goes to the whole panel, what are the main KPIs you use to measure the success of your onboarding program, and how do you measure them? So do you have only surveys? Do you measure them somehow else? And I'm just gonna open it up to the whole panel. So anybody who wants to answer this one.
I'm happy to kick things off, but it's really not that exciting. We have surveys that we send out to all of our new starters that they get at various points of their onboarding over their first 6 months. And that's a really, really important measurement for us. And for example, I can tell you, I had to get involved in a few situations where we didn't get the best feedback about people's experience. And then we really make an effort, I make an effort to meet with that employee and find out like what happened, why was your experience the way it was, and what can we do better next time? And I mean, the other thing we do, which is really important, is also, it's not like something we have that's really tangible, but we make an effort to really reach out to all of our managers to make sure that people are ramping up quickly. And so we get feedback from them very regularly around like, are they getting all the information they need to be able to be effective in their role? And when we see if there's a slip, then, we make an active effort as well to make sure that, is this something that the people team, own and can improve upon, or is it more, say, at a departmental level that changes need to be made? So I think that's important, is just having those touch points along the way.
Yeah, thank you. And I really like what you just said about also regularly checking in with the managers, because I think it takes a lot to manage new starters, but it takes probably even more to manage their managers at times and to hold them also accountable for the onboarding of their employees. Thanks for that. to the rest of the panel, do you want to add something on in terms of KPIs or other measures?
No, I just basically, to bounce back on what Anna said, we do similar things. So basically, really after the first week, we have a survey going out to new joiners, asking how their experience was, and then after 3 months again, just to check how the temperature is there. And we do the same for managers. So it's roughly the same, but we obviously beyond this also have many surveys going out, office vibe, the sort of tools in that direction to just check on a general basis how things are in teams that we monitor too.
Thank you. Marisa, I will stay with you because the next question is actually for you, from Millie. It's about the shadowing program. So apparently our participants are very interested in the first 3 months shadowing program you have. Can you share a bit more about this one with us?
Yeah, so there are several considerations about this that have been made. So basically, it's important for everyone in the company to understand how to connect the dots. So what impact my work has on other departments and the other way around. And at the same time, we have a very strong user centricity. So this is why shadowing is sort of very important. We have shadowings with sales teams, for instance, so to see how actually our product is presented to practitioners, and at the same time also strong shadowing put in place also in remote, because we onboard practitioners remote, but also calling sessions as well, and customer care calls. So we can shadow that too, and it's more about understanding what are their needs, what's their background, what are the most questions popping up. But at the same time, it's also possible to maybe shout out like the people team. So someone can come to our team and look how we're working and what we're working on. And it would be like a day or an hour, or whatever. So it's sort of put in place depending on what department it is.
Okay, thank you. There was actually just one question popping in, which I really liked, so I will move it forward. I will take this power of the facilitator, and it's about failures or some mess ups you had when going remote in your onboarding. So again, my question goes to the whole panel. What are some failure stories you can share with us when it comes to onboarding employees remotely?
Maybe I can go first because, there are many, I would say, but I think this is the best way to learn actually and to create and better your onboarding experience. But I think one of the biggest hiccups or failures that we had is that in my case, I would say that I was stuck too much on my script and on the short time windows that I planned for our remote onboarding sessions. So that means that I planned the sessions way too tight, which left no room for engagement or additional questions from the joiners. And since I was even more inexperienced back then, I was so focused on the information I prepared that was perfectly presented, instead of listening and feeling the needs of the joiner, especially relocators who are joining from very far away or joined Berlin from very far away. And this I think I would say is something that we quickly changed, because time is really important, or at least to take time for the joiners to make them also individually feel individually heard. But also one of the things that I struggled, or my team struggled a lot with, was coordinating everything regarding setup of the equipment and communicating well to each department what our goal is and what we want to focus on. I think I would communicate way more and way more clear to everyone what we want to achieve, and in order to create a good experience for the joiners.
Thank you. Do we have any other volunteers for a small failure or something that did not go so well when it comes to remote?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we learned a lot of really painful lessons early on. And I would actually point this back to the KPIs question. I found myself spending a lot of time unconfusing managers about what was going to happen when they could next have a new hire available. We had some early struggles with like accessing computers. At some point, Apple's supply chain got interrupted. It was a hot mess. And all of the communication with the managers was going sideways. The managers were not on, it was not clear to them what was going to happen to their new hire and when their new hire was going to be on board. And so that quickly became one of the KPIs that we implemented for my team specifically. So the folks who are leading onboarding, and they are facilitators, they're instructional designers, they are the folks who actually do that supervision of the other sessions of like, hi, I'm going to give you feedback, stakeholder, on how your session could be more engaging and more fun. Yay, wonderful. And we really help. So that's usually what their job is. And all of a sudden, this team's job was wrangle all of these incredibly complex global logistics. And by the way, let managers know what was going to happen. And it was very different based on like, if you were a manager in EMEA with this type of employee who needed this type of computer, here's the lead time, here's when they're going to be onboarded. And so just constant moving target of expectations for managers. But it was really problematic to have managers so confused about what was happening, and it was just not where I wanted everyone's energy to go. So we quickly turned that into a KPI, and we created a channel with all of the information, all of the schedules, a workflow for asking questions. Here, managers, here is exactly what is happening with your employee. And rather than it, and like managers were DMing me randomly asking me questions, managers were DMing the recruiters asking them questions, and nobody knew who was the source of information. So really my team's early process innovation there was, okay, we need a channel for this, and it needs to be the one source of truth and information, and it needs to funnel questions and triage them appropriately with expected response times as well. And we developed a protocol for those random situations where it's like, your computer's missing. Apple doesn't know where it is. Yay, we're going to need to go figure that out. And we'd have no idea when the computer will actually arrive, no idea when we'll actually be able to onboard you. So unfortunately, just due to the logistics of shipping things in the pandemic, that was definitely a challenge early on. So turning that into a KPI of managers need to not be as confused. Managers need to have a single source of truth for what is going to happen with their new hire and how they can support. So we also really heavily involve managers in, they build an onboarding plan that meshes with the global onboarding plan, that meshes with the departmental onboarding plan, so that they can really, so that the whole experience is cohesive, and I don't have poor new hires coming to me going, well, my manager says I should go to this meeting, but you have me in this onboarding session. What do I do? So making sure that we eliminated those questions, those problems, which we definitely had early on, but we're doing much better on that front now.
I would say the usual bumps at the beginning of the pandemic or in any change process, probably. Thanks for sharing. Yes, I'm looking at the Slido, and there's one question that can go to either Laura and Marisa. It's about onboarding session coordination if not all employees start at the same day in a month. So I guess there are companies out there who have set start dates. So I know that, for example, HelloFresh has 2 start dates per month, but there are apparently also a lot of companies who have various start dates throughout the month. So also with the different time zones we now have to manage, I guess this is something that will happen more often. So Marisa, Laura, do you want to share a bit more? How do you actually handle onboarding session coordination if not all employees manage to start at the same day in a month?
I can go first because it's very short. We're very similar as HelloFresh. We have the 1st is the start date of the month, and then we have the 15th, and that's how we handle it. There's no in-betweens. Pretty straightforward, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to ours. So also on the 1st and the 15th, but I think what I also mentioned in my introduction presentation is that you always have to stay flexible, and also to make sure that individual cases are seen and heard. So for example, we have a lot of relocators from India or Africa or from so many different continents that sometimes due to the COVID crisis, they cannot come suddenly. And this is a decision or the information you get sometimes a day before your onboarding session, because, you know, for example, last onboarding session, we had one candidate who actually got sick with COVID a week before his start date, which is I know that he's doing better now, so which is great. But the thing is that we quickly made sure that he has time to rest and relax, and then start 2 weeks later, or even if he needs more time, 4 weeks later. So we want to make sure that we are always taking individual cases, which is more effort, of course, and more communication, more administrative work in the background, but it's worth it because people, you know, they have anxiety of, like also Anna mentioned very early on, that of, you know, joining and a new company from a different country. So yeah, we try to be very strict. We have even deadlines with our IT service, like, okay, 2 weeks before, you know, you get this information from our joiners and the manager are informed. We do have our timelines, which are very important and give you guidance, but we are also very flexible and agile when it comes to specific cases, COVID cases, whatever. Yeah.
Thank you. Talking timeline, I think I will open up the let's say last two questions, and the next one is actually particularly important for me as a facilitator of this session personally, because I feel we're now talking startup with a huge hiring volume, like hiring 20 to 50, 60 people a month, with probably also some more resources, etc., to spend on onboarding and on creating a great onboarding experience. So I guess we also have some other company representatives in this call, probably coming from smaller companies or with less money and time on their hands. So I'm really interested to hearing your thoughts on, let's say, the low-hanging fruits on how you can improve a remote onboarding experience with, let's say, tricks or practices that require minimum time and money investment. And I'm gonna, I think I'm gonna hand this to Anna first.
Sorry. Look, one thing I would say is ask your employees as well, and ask your new starters. I think that's actually something we've done, and it's really key in this whole thing. Is like, we know normally you'd be getting together with your colleagues, you've been going out and having team lunches and things. Is there something we can offer as a substitute? That was one thing we did at one stage. Look, I think all the things I talked about didn't cost anything. I mean, setting up a Google site, we had to run it past our security team, but that doesn't cost anything. There's some really simple things that you can do that don't cost anything. I mean, the Slack bot, yes, we got to a point where we had to pay a little bit extra because we had so many users, but it's also relatively cheap. And I would just say, be mindful of all of the communication channels that you have and use them to your advantage. And just as I think you've heard me say throughout my talk here today, is I'm just such an advocate of communicating. And that just does not cost much money. Sure, it's a little bit of a time investment, but you can also work around automation. And, we just set up a bunch of templates. Sure, it requires some manual work. We have a bit of a tool zoo at Contentful as well, but at least, we've got the processes and the structures all set up and ready to go. So, I would just say, if you don't have much money, it's also perfectly fine. I mean, if you've got Zoom, use Zoom. If you have other tools, but just, be mindful that everyone, of course, we know everyone communicates and learns in different ways. So just also use a broad cross-section of communication mediums as well. I think that's what's really crucial.
Thanks, Anna. And I will also ask Marisa the same question, because you also provided us with some tools you use, especially to make remote onboarding more interactive and fun. So maybe you want to share it again?
Yeah, I think Anna actually already said it all in a way. So I'm not going to repeat what she said, because I also think communication is everything in a way, you know, setting the tone, setting the framing. But yeah, I did mention a few tools. So Workflow Builder, if you're using Slack anyways, Workflow Builder is actually part of it. So it's not an additional cost. Look at that to communicate again. But I would also look at virtual Icebreaker, it's called. It's also for free. So also random one-on-one matchings to get some networking between your employees. And yeah, look at Trello. Trello, is it for free? I'm not sure. Yeah. But otherwise, build templates there and a roadmap there. It can help you.
Thank you. A lot of good insights from you as well. Thanks for that. I have one final question before I move back over to Olla, and this is actually, for all of you. So it's more of a, I want to hear about your assumptions. So when this, I mean, I'm an optimist, so I would say, I guess this whole situation will end at one point. So what do you think? Can you imagine that onboarding, like remote onboarding, will continue after COVID-19 has somehow ended? Or will you go back to where you were a year ago with face-to-face sessions, etc.?
Well, I think that question really depends on the position that your company's taking on whether you want to be a remote first organization. And I think a lot of companies have gone through that process, right, where they're assessing, do we ever think that we're going to be back in the office 5 days a week? I mean, I can tell you at Contentful, we've decided that we still place a lot of importance on being in the office. Does that mean everyone's going to be back the way that they were? Absolutely not. And we're still working our way around like how that's going to look. But what's really important for us is that, you know, we have a lot of distributed workers, and that's not going to change for us post-COVID. And so we've also said, and this is, I think, particularly interesting, say, for our engineering team, as I said, we're moving offices. And in the last few months, they've completely decided to rethink also about how they use the office space, because ultimately what they want to have is space where if you're working from home, you're totally set up to do so. So bringing that back to this topic on onboarding, you know, that's relevant for us too. There's a whole bunch of things we're not going to change because we want to set up our onboarding process to be agile, to be flexible, and to work for employees wherever that they are in the world. And as we scale as well, that's going to be particularly important for us.
Thank you, Anna. And then I'm gonna also ask Ariel, do you think you will go back to flying everybody to San Francisco, or will you also?
Oh, I'm never going to get that to fly in the budget again, literally. No, actually, I'm a major convert. This has been a huge learning process for me too. I would have, a year ago, I would have told you I will stake my career on doing in-person onboarding. And now I will tell you the opposite. I think that remote onboarding actually provides so much flexibility and really allows people to balance their lives and all of the complexity that everyone's dealing with right now in a way that is much more human and ultimately leads to much better productivity outcomes. So I believe that remote onboarding is here to stay, and that we should embrace that and all of the benefits that come with that. And instead, I'd like us to focus our energy when we can eventually open our offices again and people do go back to some kind of in-person interactions. I think we optimize for first day in office. We design special experiences there that make the transition between, oh, I've only ever seen these people as little faces on a screen, to, wow, I'm in an office. How do I make the most of that experience? And how do I make the most of that, what will probably still be a limited opportunity to interact face-to-face? So I think it will give us a whole new exciting field to think about that will still look a little bit like onboarding, but it really transitions more into the learning and change management space. So new thing for my team to nerd out about. Very excited.
Thank you. And this might be a topic for next year's first BerLearn session. So how do you actually adjust people to being back in the office? Yeah, who knows? Hopefully rather sooner than later. Well, I think looking at the time, we're more or less through with it. For me personally, it was a very insightful session. Thanks again for all the panelists. So for me, some of the main insights are, of course, over-communicate, provide new starters with a structure, be their firm rock in times of uncertainty, also hold managers accountable, chunk up longer sessions into shorter sessions to also keep everybody engaged and listening, etc., and really try to create this feeling of belonging, even when let's say the typical startup cultural activities are probably not possible currently. And I also really like what Anna just said in the end. There are some simple ways which don't really cost much, just by asking your employees how they're doing and what they need, etc. So we don't need full-fledged onboarding programs to create a great onboarding experience, although of course some of them help. So I really enjoyed this session. Thanks again for everybody who was participating. Olla, I will hand over to you now, because I think you will introduce us to the networking tool now.
Brilliant. What a brilliant session. Thank you so much to all the speakers. So much content, so much information. Gudrun, you've done a fantastic job. And all the participants. What a brilliant questions you have asked. And I personally learned a lot as well. So that's brilliant. So what are the current things that are going to happen now? We're going to send a follow-up email to all of you. So if you arrive a little bit late, it's all recorded and send it to you in a follow-up email. In terms of slides, we'll ask individual speakers, maybe not all slides will be shared, perhaps some. And 4 things you can do after this event is sign up to our website on BerLearn.com. So you can join our newsletter, you can join our Slack channel, so on and so forth. You can follow us on LinkedIn. We post a lot of cool content, a lot of different information, so you can also sign up to different events. You can donate, because we are a non-profit, we operate just on donations, and definitely reach out. So if you have any feedback, if you want to organize event, if you like to sponsor, support, or connect, so feel free to reach out to us at hi@berlearn.com. Add me on LinkedIn. You know, I'm super flexible, I'm super open for everyone. So yeah, really happy to be here today, and really happy to have such a, we had about 170 people today, so well done. But that's not the end. Pandemic, we're all eager to make friends, we're all eager to network. So we actually have a tool, those who would like to stay for a bit longer. We are going to go to a different platform, and Marisa has mentioned it before. It's called wonder.me. It's a way for you to have one-on-one networking events, or a team of 4, team of 5, so you actually can feel like you're walking around and meeting people in the room. So if you're watching that on YouTube, the link should be in the comment. So stick around, say hi, make a friend from somewhere that you haven't been before, or just exchange your experiences about the event, or about L&D in general. So you're going to go to a different platform now. If you're not going to go there, have a fantastic evening. Wish you all the best, and thank you so much for being with us. Ciao, ciao. The link is in the comments, so make sure you click on that. Thank you.